Well, hello, everybody. Welcome to the World Edition. I'm Nick Pellevitt. I'm going to be your host today since Mark Lee is, well, we don't know where he went. But today we do have a very special guest who needs no introduction, but we're going to give him an introduction right now just to get him started. So here comes the introduction for our special panelist who's been on our show many times. And now notice, there he is in the flesh, baby, Chris Greco.
Well, hey, how's it going?
Showing you that better half exactly. All right, former military.
Oh my gosh, I do not approve that message, Nick.
And you don't approve that message, unlike some of our other politicians that do approve the message.
Jeez.
So anyway, I thought it was a great video. It really does bring out your personality, which
misogynist.
is definitely necessary.
So anyway, so you go ahead.
I don't know about anything about that, but I do know this: we do have some interesting news that is going on today. Apparently, we have some updates in our friendly war in Ukraine. In other words, apparently there's still stuff going on in the Putin circle. I don't know. I don't know what he's talking about. Peace, no peace, give us peace. We had a great program yesterday on, and you can see it. I've shipped it around all of social media, live from Ukraine, Russia, China, and the Ukraine. My conversations with the Chinese, but I'm not sure if I'm talking to Chinese on understanding China. I really think they're Russian trolls. I really do. Okay, because just the way they operate, they don't act like Chinese people at all. They act like Russians. Some of them are Chinese, but I think you got a lot of Russians on that site. Yeah. What do you think about that in the media distortions? Look, Chris, it's so easy. You can create a website.
That's right.
You can flood it with people that aren't. In other words, we could create a website. I hate Russia, for example. We could flood it with Americans, and we could say, "I'm from St. Petersburg. Russia stinks." You see what I mean?
Yeah.
And America is great. I don't know why Putin is such a rabble rouser, et cetera, et cetera. And I'm thinking about doing that. And it's complete media distortion. And Russians do it all the time. But what are your thoughts about the distorting the media besides Elon Musk buying Twitter, saying it's going to be free speech, and then the Europeans are passing the Digital Marketing Act and Service Act to actually limit.
Hey, Nick. Before we get to that and everything, because we have more breaking news and everything. So I know this will be great news. This is breaking news for you and everything, because apparently I just found it out because I was looking out while my computer was acting crazy and everything. But you will be glad to know, as will Chris, that we just got news today, April 27th, from Mr. Fauci. The United States is finally out of the pandemic phase. The country's top infectious disease experts said, as cases and hospitalizations are notably down and mask mandates are all but extinct. While there are still new infections spreading throughout the country, an average of 50,000 per day as of Tuesday, the country is far from the heights of the pandemic when daily counts surpassed 1 million. Restrictions, too, are easing as many Americans appear to be putting the pandemic behind them. Masking requirements have been lifted across most of the country, and officials stopped enforcing a federal mask mandate in transportation settings after a judge struck down the requirements. And once again, this is the quote as of yesterday. We are certain, yesterday, Tuesday. We are certainly right now in this country out of the pandemic phase, Anthony Fauci, President Joe Biden's chief medical advisor, said Tuesday evening on PBS's NewsHour. Fauci said the United States was no longer seeing tens and tens and tens of thousands of hospitalizations and thousands of deaths. We are at a low level right now. During the pandemic's darkest moments, many wondered when the country would officially declare itself past the nationwide disaster, which has killed nearly 1 million Americans. So, and they did say that Fauci's comments, coming back to your media comments and everything, are likely to fuel debate about whether this is truly the moment. New cases are on the rise in the United States and deaths are down, though they often lag spikes in cases. So the Center for Disease Control and Prevention said Tuesday that as of the end of February, nearly 60% of Americans, including 3 out of every 4 children, have been infected with the coronavirus. But officials cautioned that the data did not indicate that Americans have widespread immunity against the virus because of their prior infections. And that actually reminds me personally that I need to go get my booster shots. So that's just going on and all along those lines. But what do you say? You've been saying that you were waiting for this moment. Apparently, according to Fauci, the pandemic is over.
Well, a couple things. Okay, first of all, he's right, mainly because of what Pfizer did developing this new drug that basically, if you take it after you get COVID, has a 90% effective rate to keep you out of the hospital. 2, all the data I've been receiving, especially in North Carolina, we're down next to 0. There's still outbreaks around the country. So because Omicron is so easily to get, but at the same time, when you have a drug that is 90% effective, you've got a real weapon in your quiver right now, which did not exist about a year or so ago. And we also got to thank all the people that actually took the vaccine, because they actually helped wipe out the pandemic. And we give no thanks to the people that were obstinate, because they prolonged the pandemic. Not to say that all people should have taken the vaccine, because we know we had some people on the show that they couldn't take it because they have cancer, they have other reasons not to take it that are legitimate. But in terms of all the illegitimate, obstinate, I'm going to resist government at any opportunity stuff. You know, you can eat hot laser dust as far as I'm concerned. You did not do this country a service. Hey, speaking of somebody who does us a service, who just showed up, is Sasha Starr, who's actually up to date on Ukraine, Russia, and China, and so rather than have
we definitely want to pivot to the Ukraine and see what's going on over there, because we got a lot of things happening there.
By the way, the United Nations keeps taking.
I will say that I did go out yesterday to grab a bite to eat and everything at one of our fast food restaurants, and I had just like a little one of those dust coughs and everything of that nature. And I did tell you that even though the pandemic supposedly is over, that folks will give you a stare, even if you have something simple as a common cold or just even a dust cough. Because like I said, everybody was there, and as soon as that happened, everybody just kind of like stared as if to say, hey, is he all right? Is everything all right? What's going on over there? So while we may be out of the pandemic, according to Fauci, the fear of the pandemic is not over.
Well, yeah, I mean, there's still going to be mortality related to this flu. Don't mark my words. People are still going to die of COVID-19, but it's going to be an acceptable level. And so, in other words, it's going to be way, way down as opposed to what we've seen, Mark, in the past. And internationally, China's not doing too well, because Shanghai's being shut down. There's some countries that really didn't take this seriously. The United States being one of them. And the thing is, and they didn't really go through all the steps you need to do to get to an endemic level. So,
Nick, and Fauci. No wonder Fauci is just like the evil sorcerer. I mean, April 8th, 2022. What Fauci sees coming with the BA2 coronavirus subvariant in the U.S., NPR, I think without a doubt, quote, I think without a doubt that we are going to see a turnaround as people get out more into venues without masks, he said. That's going to be certainly resulting in infections, even in people who are vaccinated. Then they come out with this modeling, which I got, by the way.
When did he say all this? The timing is
April 8th
of this year,
2022.
Right. Okay, right.
And 2 weeks later, 3 weeks later, it's like, we're done. You know, when you do that crap, life, you don't know what's going on.
It's because, obviously, of the Pfizer antiviral medicine you can take once you get COVID-19. It's a game changer if you can take a bloody pill.
I got 3 words for you. 3 words. Midterm elections. well, 2.5 words. But I mean, midterm elections. That's what's coming up. The whole thing, the Ukraine situation, the masks.
Okay,
we're done. We're done, everybody. Look,
the midterms.
Thank the Democrats. Thank you, Democrats.
The midterms. The Democrats are going to get washed in the midterms. They're going to get destroyed. Okay, part of it is it's natural that you get destroyed during the midterms, the party in power. Part of it is you can't have an economy with 8% inflation, okay, and survive the midterms. So the Democrats.
Canada has that.
No, I want to hear something about the midterms. We're talking about I got a question about the midterms, and I definitely want to get to what's going on in the Ukraine.
Has it. Who gives a rat's rear about Vietnam? I mean, come on, we're talking about the United States of America, buddy, Chris.
We want to get to the Ukraine. We want to get to a couple of other things, but I do have a question about the midterms and everything, which is definitely there is a presidential candidate, or at least people are speculating that he's going to be a presidential candidate, and of course, he's in the news as well. That being Florida Governor Ron DeSantis, who on Friday signed a bill eliminating a special tax district, which allowed the Walt Disney Company to exercise a form of self-government around its Orlando area park in retaliation for the company's opposition to a new law that limits discussion of gender and sexual identity in the state.
He's going to invade Disney World. Did I tell you that? He's going to invade Disney. He's going to put troops up, and he's going to invade him with the National
Or he
Guard.
can get the troops around Disney World and say, "I'm not going to invade." Then go ahead and invade.
Yep.
And that would be Ron DeSantis. But if you notice,
I'm just kidding.
Okay, you notice. Okay, the Republicans keep saying about, we don't like cancel culture. We don't like cancel culture. The Democrats do all cancel culture in college and everywhere. And guess what happened? This is a big example of Republican cancel culture. The minute Disney says, well, we're against this gay rights
pay the
thing,
taxes.
they get retaliated like that. And it would wait. Let's get you some help, Chris, before I sink your bloody boat. Oh, there's Shaquille. There's another.
Yay, Shaquille's here.
You got somebody on your side, baby. But let me tell you something. Cancel culture is alive and well. It's called the Republican Party and Ron DeSantis. So mark my words, if he gets elected and you say something he doesn't like, he will retaliate. So
like
please don't get these demagogues like
let's talk about rice
in our government.
Come on, Shaquille.
So firstly,
he's from Australia.
Let me just go to Nick's comments, ridiculous comments about the vaccine, as if it was only sort of Southern Republicans that had some qualms about taking the vaccine. Yet Kamala Harris, Joe Biden, a number of other leading Democrats said that they were not going to have the vaccine because it was developed under Donald Trump. Then they win the election and, how could anybody not want to have the vaccine? Pretty much like Steve Rao was saying yesterday, and how the media is in a big tizzy because Elon Musk has bought Twitter. So, the complaint about conservatives and centre-right people having the ability to express their views was ignored. Now that they've got one platform that they can do that on, oh my God, how could they possibly? And you've got people like that twit on CNN saying that, oh no, people are going to have too much free speech. There's going to be too much freedom. He makes a comment that if you went to a party with no rules, would you go to that party or would you just stay home? Well, maybe he would stay home, but I think the rest of us would like to live a little bit.
What do you think, Shaquille? You mentioned earlier, but
he's got more stuff.
As for Nick's comments about Republican Party, the party of go. Disney has interfered with Florida's democratic process. More than 70% of the people in Florida have said very clearly that they would like to have some say in what is actually being taught in their schools. Now, have a look at what has happened in Georgia. Because of Stacey Abrams and other Democrats, the baseball has moved from Georgia to another state that has even more restrictive voting regulations. So, this kind of nonsense is exactly what people are fed up with, and it's exactly the reason why the Democrats are going to and should get slaughtered in the midterms.
Hold on a second. A couple of questions.
And on that note, I'm just going to adjust some of my positions. I'll be back.
Now, what baseball team moved from Atlanta?
Howard, leave us.
Then I missed it.
Howard from Australia.
Before we go off into this area, and to bring Sasha, I really want to ask Sasha about this. So the UN chief, right? UN chief goes over to Putin, and then he goes over to Zelensky, and Putin, as a result of the meeting with the UN chief, Putin says, we'll talk about evacuation routes, and I'm sitting back going, you mean evacuation routes to Putin's Russia? Is that the evacuation routes that you're talking about? Also, Putin has just said Now, guess what, Poland? You get no gas. Or you're going to pay in rubles. If you don't pay in rubles, we give you no gas. Now, Germany, you notice, is still, they're doing whatever. I don't know whether they're paying rubles or whatever, but they're still getting gas, right? So it has to go through Poland to get to Germany. And they said, and if you attempt to tap any of the lines going through your country, now it's a sovereign nation, right? But basically it's their line, it's the Russian line. If you tap that line in any way, shape, or form to get more gas, here's what we're going to do. We're going to cut off gas, period, to everybody, So, Sasha, my head's exploding here. So is Europe they're saying they have enough gas. They have enough, Poland's saying they got enough stored gas. They're not going to worry about it at this point. But, Russia's got basically, he's got Europe by the cojones, with this natural gas thing. How does Europe extricate themselves from this vicious jerk?
Chris, I understand your frustration. However, there is very little help could be offered to you at this point. All these negotiations and agreements with Russia are not worth even the paper that they will be written upon, and it's just complete waste of time. Russia is, there is only one God in Russia. It's a pure power. Here is the power. There are so many warheads, there are so many missiles, there are so many artillery tanks, and so on. Now, Ukraine doesn't understand that. They do very, very little complaining and just destroy every day. I know every day exactly how many tanks they destroyed, how many artillery systems they destroyed, how many people they killed. Every day at the end of the day, I have these numbers. It's growing every day. And that's the only things that can stop this criminal, the bandit, the vulture, really, of unspeakable magnitude. And the West very slowly starts to get there and understand what's going on. They're trying, what kind of deal you can do with a murderer? You can't do any deal with him. All you have to do is inflict such damages that he may understand that whatever I have to do to avoid these damages may be a better route for me to save my power, my life, and everything else. So that's the only way he knows the power. He understands the power, and the power is the only thing what can actually get him out of the position where he is today.
I'll tell you one thing. If the U.S. military, and specifically Austin was over there, if Austin doesn't take somebody and put them over there and interview all these people in Ukraine, and instead of presenting, and I'm not calling a name, right? I'm not calling Vietnam a name. I'm not calling the Gulf War a name. I'm just saying we need to have a class in the military, in our military, U.S. military, of how the Ukraine took on Russia after they were invaded. So they're playing defense, and yet they had the ability to basically kick the Russians out without the type of high sophisticated weapons that the Russians had. And it was like people sit there and go, well, world politics, the world media was against Russia. And that, I think that's a bunch of horse poop. I think basically what happened is they just, like Sasha just said, they made them feel their pain. Every single Russian soldier that was brought out in a body bag, every single Russian soldier that was brought back and, buried in Russia, all of a sudden you get those, you get those feelings like, what did my son die for? Did he die for anything? Because they didn't, well, we're going to take the Donbass region. Well, congratulations on that. That's great. Oh, we took Mariupol. Super duper. How many casualties did the Russians have taking one city? One city. How many casualties do the Russians have? And how many casualties do the Ukrainians have? And this is irreversible in the historical market. You can't sit there and say nobody's ever going to. No Ukrainian is ever going to forgive a Russian for doing what they did. Ever.
Well, speaking of forgiving and everything, we've also got Russia on Wednesday banned 287 British members of parliament from entering the country and accusing them of quote unquote fueling Russophobic hysteria in Britain, drawing a defiant response from Prime Minister Boris Johnson. In response to Russia's invasion of Ukraine, Britain has, alongside the Allies, imposed far-reaching sanctions against Moscow's wealthy oligarchs and political elites, including, of course, their president, Vladimir Putin. And this is some of the quotes that were going on. These persons took the most active part in the establishment of anti-Russian sanctions instruments in London and contribute to the groundless whipping up of Russophobic hysteria in the UK, is what the Foreign Ministry statement said. And of course, they've got all kinds of people and all of that. And what they said is that all those 287 should regard it as a badge of honor. Johnson, who was himself banned from Russia on April 16th, told Parliament. So they're like saying, hey, y'all want to ban us? Go ahead and ban us.
And you know, the person who first said that they considered it a badge of honor was British Columbia. The leader of British Columbia in Canada said, I consider it to be a badge of honor that the Russians have decided that I am no longer invited to Moscow. Yay. You know, so I thought that was very interesting put. Very interesting.
Yeah. Well, since we're also broadcasting from the United Nations, we have this clip, Russia and the United Nations. If you guys can just hold off for a couple minutes, Shaquille can do some trades and make a couple billion while we're watching the clip. But let's go take a look at Russia and the United Nations.
Let's take that.
This is a cancer tumor. And this is a map of the Russian occupational forces invading Ukraine. Russia is cancer on the continent's body. But the metastases of the Russian tumor have spread not only to Ukraine. Russian special services finance and infiltrate their agents in every single international organization. UNESCO are closing their eyes to the destruction of cultural monuments and historical antiquities in Crimea and Ukraine. Until this day, they haven't excluded Russia from their organization and are going to hold their next session in this terrorist country. The International Committee of the Red Cross, being constantly financed from Russia, sabotaged their own work in Ukraine. Under disguise of help, they contribute to forced deportation of Ukrainians from the fighting zone to Russia, basically handing Ukrainians to their enemies, who organize filtration camps for Ukrainians on the Russian territory. OSCE. This respected organization hasn't noticed the atrocities of the Russian army and separatists on temporary occupied Ukrainian territories for 8 years, and still hasn't excluded Russia from their ranks. IAEA. Till this day haven't dismissed their workers with Russian citizenship or other connections to Russian entities at all. Perhaps thanks to the work of the saboteurs as part of the IAEA, Russian troops captured several Ukrainian nuclear power plants, including Chernobyl, made ammunition depots there, and fired at the civilian Ukrainian population from there. UN still haven't excluded the Russian Federation as its member state, although legally Russia should not be there at all. The USSR was a member of the UN, but nobody ever voted for including Russia into it. Besides, the UN doesn't even consider the possibility of saving millions of lives by deploying its peacekeepers, which leads to terrible consequences not only for Ukraine, but for the whole of Europe. Remember, everyone receiving money from Russia is an accomplice of world terrorism. You think money doesn't smell? Oh no, it reeks of blood of tens of thousands Ukrainians and their children for miles.
Very good presentation, and factually, it's absolutely correct. The world is infiltrated with Russian money, which Russia is getting, even today with sanctions, is getting $1 billion a day. Okay, so it has enough money to continue the same thing. And frankly, there is very little resolve in the West to resist that. It may change though, and especially now, you see, Ukraine now is already capable to attack Russia and even invade Russian territory. The only reason they are not doing that is avoid Russia using tactical nuclear weapons. That's the only one reason.
Hey, Sasha,
So
and
they're just getting tired Russian forces.
Speaking of tired of Russian forces and everything, and this is actually for both you and Chris. I guess I was not paying as much attention as I should have, but apparently there was a U.S. individual, a U.S. military individual that had been in Russia in jail since 2019. So he's been there for 3 years, but it sounds like he is heading back. So that actually just came back today.
Well,
so
ex-Marine, yeah, or a Marine, a former Marine, whatever you want to call him.
Right.
Yeah.
Trevor Reed is headed back to the United States. The Marine who had been jailed in Russia since 2019 has been released in a prisoner swap. Our family has been living a nightmare, his family said in a statement. Today, our prayers have been answered, and Trevor is safely on his way back to the United States. Reed was sentenced to 9 years in prison in July 2020 for endangering, quote unquote, the lives and health of a Russia police officer during a night out drinking in Moscow the previous year. He has denied he did anything wrong in return for Reed's release. The U.S. is returning P.O.D. Konstantin Yaroshenko, who has been jailed in the U.S. on drug charges, to Russia. The swap was first announced by Russia's foreign ministry on Wednesday morning, which noted that the exchange was a result of a lengthy negotiation process, and President Biden announced the news shortly thereafter. Today, we welcome home Trevor Reed and celebrate his return to the family that missed him dearly, he said in a statement, and now he's free from Russian detention and all of that. But
hallelujah, this is publicity stuff, and I don't understand what's a U.S. Marine doing in Russia for years. Either he was spying there or he was trying to just enjoy his life. At the end of the day, he had to pay for it, and it's not a political situation that I would pay any attention to it. It's a rather private matter, and that's all there is to it.
Well, I mean, it just and look what they exchanged, right? You know, Reed, right? Who's
they exchange one criminal for another one.
Exactly. Well, you know, the guy's a convicted drug trafficker. They're giving him back to Russia. Geez, okay, well that's good. So they're taking this guy who, for whatever reason, was jailed. You know, whatever it is, he's not talking, they're not talking, whatever else, and a convicted drug smuggler. So yeah, that's good. So give something back to give a great citizen back to Russia. You know, somebody who can really contribute to their overall societal benefit. You know, that's good. So maybe they'll make him a frontline soldier, you know, going against Ukraine. You know, yeah, you can come back, but you're going to get a weapon and you're going to get into a tank, or you're going to go over there to Ukraine. So that's perfect, you know, because.
But from a political standpoint, because that comes back to even like the Fauci moment, because that's what I'm thinking is that we're going to see some more of these kind of like, for lack of a better term, military, diplomatic stunts in order to try to better the situation as we get ready to go into these midterm elections. And I do agree that with what Nick said earlier, the Democrats are in deep trouble and all of that. But are we going to see more of these stunts? Because I remember, wasn't it one time that we actually went into like, had like one of those midnight saving kind of rescues with Iran and everything as we were getting close to an election and all along those lines. So I'm wondering, are we going to see more of these kind of stunts in order to try to improve the democratic situation in the politics? That's what I'm wondering.
Interestingly enough, you know, Desert One, which was the attempted rescue of the hostages in Iran, was in April. So April must be this magical month that things do happen. Of course, that failed. But the whole idea behind this is, and this is Sasha, I'm sorry, this is kind of domestic here, but basically what's happening, everyone, I'm sitting and looking at Ted Budd. I'm looking at, all these different congressional and senatorial candidates that are endorsed by Trump. Right. And I see America first all the time, America first, right. America first. And I'm sitting back going, something, if Trump does not get the primary, now this is his right to do this, but if he doesn't get that presidential primary in 2024, I could see him saying, I'm going to take my followers and I'm going to break off from the Republican Party. I'm going to call it the America First Party or whatever, America Conservative Party or whatever he wants to call it. And he's going to break off from this party, make a third party. And if he does that, I don't care who it is that's running for the Democrats, Biden, Harris, Pelosi. I don't care who's going to run for the Democrats. They're going to be basically ushered in to the White House, because Democrats will never, ever vote. Democrats and independents that say they're independents, but they're really Democrats, will never vote for a third party candidate. They are voting for Democrats right down the line, period. Done. And that's going to be an interesting election, because and same thing. Because I think Trump is setting up the Republican Party. If he doesn't do it right, he's setting it up for absolute failure.
Hasn't that happened before with Ross Perot and some of the other candidates that try to do third
I'll
party?
tell you what had happened.
We can even go with Anderson back in the day.
Right. Well, I'll tell you. Yeah, that's true. But I'll tell you something that did happen was Roosevelt. Theodore Roosevelt ran as a third party candidate because he hated the Republican candidate, and he won. So I sit back and I go, well, maybe Trump, if he runs third party, and everyone sits there and says, well, DeSantis isn't going to win because all the followers are going to Trump and they vote third party, Trump could win as a third party candidate. But that's what he was going to do the last time. When he was kind of iffy-antsy about getting picked up in a primary, they had everyone sign a statement that says, I'm going to support the Republican Party whether I'm primary candidate or not. And he kind of signed it, but then he said, well, it all depends. They're going to vote me in anyways. I'm going to win the primary, so I'm just not worried about it. And but I'm wondering if that's what's exactly what's going to happen. And I'll tell you, I'm not a chess player. I'm not a good chess player. I'm an adequate chess player. I know the pieces and how to move them. That's my thing on chess. Yeah. But I'm a good strategic thinker. I sit there and I think about these things, because it's like I think about these forks in the road that go off in these areas. As Yogi Berra said, if there's a fork in the road, take it, right? Bottom line on this whole thing is if Trump does that, then basically Biden's in for another 4 years if he survives this 4 years.
If he survives this 4 years and everything. Yeah. I do have a question for everybody, and then apparently Rand Paul has made some comments about the Ukraine as well. I'll get to those later, but I did just veering off topic for a second, but still staying international and everything. And this comes back to one of Nick's favorite topics, which is the role of influencers and the role of censorship. Because apparently a South Korean DJ and influencer said she was kicked off her flight because her pants were deemed offensive. And given the pants did have words like F you and things along those lines on the pants, so I can see where people might think that was offensive. She said that she was forced to stand half naked in front of others after being harassed into taking off the pants. The 36-year-old, who has 4.3 million Instagram followers, all but as many as Shaquille does, said she would boycott American Airlines. She is a popular DJ, and she was kicked off the American Airlines flight and harassed, is what she said. And DJ Soda, whose real name is Hang So-hee, took to Instagram and Twitter to detail how she was harassed and humiliated on Monday after boarding a flight from New York to Los Angeles. I was forced out of the plane. I was harassed to take off my pants in front of the flight crews at the gate, the 36-year-old wrote. She added that she had never had an issue wearing the pants on her current North American music tour and all of that. And I can tell you that if you look at the Instagram, the pants definitely do not leave a lot to the imagination in terms of what the words are and all of that. But hey, if you're going to get on a plane with those kind of pants on, I guess that you might just have to face those kind of consequences and everything. But I'm thinking she's thinking, hey, I've got it right. It's cancel culture. I don't want to, if I want to have these pants with F you on them, that's up to me and everything. So what do you think, Shaquille? Should she have been upset and everything? Because
before Shaquille does that, I have something else for Shaquille that has to do with this. And you, Mark, is that in North Carolina, there's an after-school club that's a satanic worship club, according to the media, the local media here. So they have a satanic worship club in a high school. I think it's a high school or middle school here in North Carolina. So Shaquille, here you go. You got pants that have obscenities on them. You got a satanic worship cult that has a after-school. Hey, let's go to the
satanic worship club. They should all rot in hell. That's my thing. Well, that's what they want to do anyway. Okay, I'm out.
Go ahead, Shaquille. Sorry, man.
Right, we'll bring.
In relation to the pants, I think that the airport staff should have prevented her from entering the plane in the first place if it was against the airline's rules. I'm not sure, especially in this day and age, whether requiring, especially a female, because obviously men don't matter, a female to remove her pants in front of flight crew. I'm not sure that was a good idea. Unfortunately for you, Mark, she wasn't black. She's Asian, so we don't, it's not oppression. Maybe it is, Asians are pretty high up on their success rate. So, maybe it's not racist.
Asians get oppressed too.
But no, I think the airline or the airport staff should have actually said something to her perhaps when she was checking in if it was against the airline's rules. As for the Satanic Worship Club, well, I'm not sure whether I'd probably prefer that, Chris, than some of the sex-based clubs that they're currently indoctrinating kindergarten kids in your country and in mine.
Well, I'm with you, Shaquille. If you're coming up to because I'm thinking that she had these pants on from the time she got on the plane, so I'm thinking she was wearing those pants when she came up to the counter and everything. So I'm thinking that they probably should have stopped her there, right from the jump before we even got to this whole incident of forcing her to take them off and everything, because she got on the plane with them. And I guess there was, some ladies that were sitting there and maybe some gentlemen and other folks.
Well, I'm not sure. I'm not sure the rationale behind forcing somebody to remove clothing in a public place. That doesn't sound like a wise idea. And I'm sure that the airline will, will have something to say about that. But I'm not familiar with the story, Mark, so I don't know the ins and outs of it. And no, I don't trust the media. And I just don't trust social media, so I'm sure there's a lot more to this story than what you've actually said.
I'm sure there is. I'm sure we'll learn more about it. But
this goes to the lack of planning that the U.S. government does. The U.S. government does not
lack of planning
anything. They don't plan anything. Let me tell you something. FAA. This is a larger picture, but it is international. The FAA and FCC knew about 5G. This is in technology, but this is important. 5G, right? 5G, greatest thing since sliced bread. 5G this, 5G that. FCC goes to FAA and says, "Hey, we're gonna have this 5G network. Is that okay with you?" FAA goes, "Yeah, it's great. So all of a sudden it goes, ba 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 ba, and then all of a sudden they go, "Well, wait a minute. We can't have a 5G tower too close to the airport because it interferes with certain avionics on aircraft as they're landing." So you're talking about the automatic landing system, Nick? Oh yeah, just landed. Yeah. Then you got a 5G, a guy calling his wife to tell him he needs whether they need milk or not, and all of a sudden it interferes with the avionics and the plane crashes. And then
the plane should land on that person's cell phone. That'd be good.
That could be, but see, this is what happens, and it's like, are you allowed or you're not allowed to wear obscene, dress? Are you not allowed to do that? It's like the guy, Shaquille, it's like the guy that was wearing wearable technology, this little LED light thing on his shirt. And they go, "Oh, you can't wear that." And he goes, "I don't see any place on here where it says I can't wear technology." So no, that contains lithium batteries. You can't take it into the aircraft. And he goes, "It doesn't contain lithium batteries. It contains little coin cells. They're alkaline. Oh, you can't take those in."
And apparently And apparently she even offered to, change the outfits because she said that she was on the way to Los Angeles to an important meeting and everything. Cool. And she offered to change and to something, I guess more appropriate everything.
Yeah.
And she ended up taking off the pants in front of the whole crew and standing half naked while they still refused to board me on the flight. Oh. They even sarcastically commented that I should have taken off my pants earlier. So yeah, they might be headed towards some sex. So
Well, they certainly should have said something to her earlier. To what you said, Chris, this is why I cannot understand why these people who think they care so much about the environment are trusting government to take care of this.
Yeah.
Politicians are going to take the easy way out, and they're going to bullshit their way out of it, just like they always have on every other issue, because the government is incapable of doing anything. And when I say the government, I mean yours, mine, and the government of every country that's ever existed in the history of humanity. They all suck. They're all hopeless. Politicians are just mildly below lawyers.
Well spoken from the what do they call it? Anarchist. That
anarchist.
We need
not an anarchist. I've met anarchists.
Yeah, he can get away with that attitude in Australia, mate, because no one lives there. It's all desert. But we happen to live in a very sophisticated society. The world's largest economy.
Sophisticated.
Largest
You've got a generation of people
and
that
we
don't
have government by the people.
Sophisticated, please.
Government by the people, guy. And so the thing is, what you're doing is you're slapping all the people in the face, saying there's no people who can govern themselves. So let me tell you,
we
govern ourselves.
So I got another one for you as well, and this comes back to the Ukraine. Hold on a second. I got another one for you, and this comes back to the Ukraine, because we've actually had his opponent on several times. I actually met him for the first time recently and everything. So we actually had his opponent on recently, and he's been on several times. I've only met him once. I think maybe Chris has met him once or twice. But Rand Paul has gotten into trouble and everything on Tuesday for his comments on the Russian invasion of Ukraine, with some people criticizing him for echoing one of Russia President Putin's talking points. During an exchange with Secretary of State Antony Blinken, Paul pointed out that Russia's attacks in the recent past have been on countries that were once part of the Soviet Union. Putin has publicly dismissed Ukraine's right to function as a sovereign nation separate from Russia. So the Kentucky Republicans' comments came during a Senate hearing with Blinken, during which Paul raised concerns about U.S. displays of support for Ukraine potentially joining the NATO military alliance, including during former President George W. Bush and President Joe Biden's administration. He asked Blinken, knowing full well that Ukraine was unlikely to ever join NATO since it's already been 14 years since they said they were going to become members, why is it so important last fall before this invasion to continue agitating for Ukraine's admission to NATO? So that's some of what's going on with our buddy Paul's opponent and all of that. Blinken responded, it's a question of standing up for the basic principle that we strongly adhere to, that there should be and will be an open door policy when it comes to NATO membership. And Paul, who has repeatedly opposed U.S. military involvement in other countries during his political career, then he went ahead and questioned the decision to push for something we knew our adversary, meaning in Russia, absolutely hated. So apparently Paul has not been the biggest fan of U.S. military involvement in other countries.
That is true. He's been very, very consistent about that. But I'm going to tell you also, Ukraine is very, very consistent. Ukraine has never liked the Soviet Union or Russia, ever. I mean, you can talk to Sasha about that. Sasha was a member of the Soviet military, and I'm sure that he sat back and said, gosh, I don't want to do this, but I'm going to do it because I guess I got to do it. But I mean, they were never, ever a fan of the Soviet Union or Russia in general. Ukraine has always been wanting to be independent. When given that opportunity, man, they went at it headlong. They decided that no way they want to be want to be any part of Russia or the Soviet Union. They took it and they ran with it. And okay, they have some corruption, they have some of this, but what country doesn't have corruption? What country doesn't do things badly in some cases? But I think basically it was kind of after Chernobyl. I think Ukraine thought, this is bullcrap. We're being used by the Soviet Union. Basically, our people are dying for what? So that they can have nuclear power. I mean, so I think that was kind of the tip, the absolute head of the head of the demon there. So countries. Poland never wanted to be part of the Soviet Union. Bulgaria never wanted to be part of it. Nobody wanted to be part of the Soviet Union. They just kind of like said, you're going to be part of it, and that was it. So I think once given that opportunity to separate, they separated, ran away from the Soviet Union. And again, I'm speaking out of turn. I never lived in the Soviet Union, certainly not in Ukraine, but in Germany, for that time frame, when it was a split country. So that was, I saw a lot of that, that diversity in East and West Germany, and how the Soviets treated East Germany, treated them like a defeated country. They never helped them to build. They never helped them do anything except continue misery.
Even today, if you go to Germany, go to Berlin, and you will see what a huge difference between Western Berlin and former Soviet occupied Berlin. It's architecture, it's a lifestyle. Even today, well more over 30 years since the Berlin Wall fell finally, and you can still see the difference. Yeah. The any hope that Soviet-style system is valid and bring to its people happiness is already been destroyed so many times. It's already been shown everywhere. But through the incredible corruption of today's Russia, namely Putin, he's corrupted all the world over. It's a Western Europe, it's United States, it's creating different fake institutions, just paying poor bribes to people of influence. They're cultivating their assets. Their bigger victory probably was in late 70s when they cultivated someone who later on became president of the United States. That's probably was one of their biggest successes. And well, even today, if you take the Republican Party of United States, and influenced, of course, heavily by Donald Trump, and all these little people like Rand Paul or so on, they're playing Donald Trump's playbook. Nothing new is there. And Moscow Mitch, who has this aluminum factories built in his state by Russian oligarch Deripaska. Isn't it true? Or you never heard about that? Well, I'm telling you that, and you can find out about it more. Yeah, okay, friends.
Looking forward to hearing more about that and everything. When we had the well, not we, because I wasn't around at that time, but when the Spanish flu was around, it was around that same time that afterwards or during that time was the Great Depression. And now I'm wondering, are we going to see a depression coming around as well, particularly when we're seeing things from different countries, and will it be a global one? Because apparently Brexit has added 6% to its Britain's food bill and all along those lines. And I know in several of our shows, we've talked about the definite economic disparity that exists between those that are affluent and those that are not as affluent and all of that. And that has nothing to do with what Chris likes to call rice. It has to do with economic disparity and all along those lines. So that being said,
what's the economic disparity? Like,
I'm just asking.
Difference between the rich and the poor.
I'm not even going to get into the race discussion.
I want to say economic disparity. Billionaires so crazy.
What's this about? Oh, the economics of it. Yes, rich people have more. That's the definition of being rich. Defend people who don't have as much. That's the definition of being poor.
Show the book cover, Nick.
What's your point
here, Mark? Show the book cover, Nick. Show the book cover.
Which one? Oh, yes, I will do this.
You do it every time Shaquille brings it up.
Every time Shaquille brings it up.
Every time
Shaquille brings it up. All I can say is defend the rich, my friend. Defend the rich. Oh, The Price of Inequality by Joe Stiglitz.
I got the book. I got the book.
Yeah, he's actually a Nobel Prize
winner. You know something, Nick. Whatever the price of inequality is, I'm happy to pay that price to avoid the cost.
Of course, because you're in the 1%. I'll pay that price.
Because every time you've tried communism, it has failed and has resulted in the deaths of tens of millions of people. So I would rather pay the price of inequality than to have to suffer the cost of equality.
But I mean, there's even been conversations, and you'll get a kick out of this, Shaquille. There have even been conversations about because I was actually on a friend's podcast and we were talking about this. There are folks, Atlanta is considered one of the prides and joys of the African American community, but there are people that are displeased by the fact that Atlanta has a significant portion, and I do mean a decent portion of people that are rich and African American, or at least affluent and African American people, like the guy that runs his own movie studio, Tyler Perry, some of the athletes, but
he's
not
not
just
a
those,
millionaire.
a very other major business communities and all of this in the area. But there is also a very significant, even their mayors have talked about this, the current one, as well as Maynard Jackson and others from the past. There is a significant population of that city that is below the poverty line. I want to say it's somewhere around the neighborhood of 60% and things of that nature. So even though Atlanta is considered to be one of the prides and joys of the African American community, that's what I meant when I said that the disparity can even happen within our own communities as well. So that's where there is some people that are concerned that there is this widening gap between those that are significantly poor and those that are significantly rich. It doesn't matter what their race is and everything. And Atlanta is an example. So that's what I meant when I said, are we concerned about whether it's Britain or Atlanta, there being a depression heading our way?
Oh, there'll be a depression.
Oh, yeah.
Hang on a second.
A recession's coming.
Yeah,
Whether there's a depression coming or not has got nothing to do with the current rates of inequality. If people are worried about inequality and are worried about the poor and the working class and even the middle class, then they should be absolutely beside themselves with anger at the Biden administration in the United States for the headline rates of inflation and for this out-of-control spending, because that has hurt the poor more than it has hurt the affluent. In fact, the affluent have benefited from it and the poor have suffered. Okay, this is a direct result of poor Democrat policy. But to get back to, I think, the crux of your question, or the crux of your point, there's a disparity between rich and poor. Absolutely. But what do you want the world to do about that? You know, we can either, you can try all these things through taxation and all that, or you can try to just put a cap on it and just say, well, look, once you've made enough, that's it, you can't make any more. And then the rich people just stop working and they just take their money and they just stop and you have rapid deflation. It's not going to help. At the end of the day, some people are more successful than others. I'd like to date a supermodel. I'm not dating one. In fact, I've been single a while. What do? Go up to some twerp the supermodels always seem to find attractive and go, it's not fair. You've got more female richness than I've got. I mean, it's ridiculous, Mark.
Well, it's not ridiculous, Mark. Okay, let me tell you something why he's wrong. When we had our tax policies done that capped up what rich people could actually accumulate, this is during the Eisenhower administration. The income tax rate was 90%. He used it so he could balance the gross domestic product, which was out of control. We had huge debts relative to our GDP. So Eisenhower, a good Republican, said, income tax rate 90%. We're going to use that to pay down the national debt. They also had an estate tax that you can accumulate millions of dollars and billions of dollars and hand it to your kids. Okay, then there's this guy Reagan came in.
Yeah, before we get to Reagan, before we get to Reagan, Nick, you're
stop working, and they won't do anything. And
all your basic premise
was address
your basic premise here, that your lovely Democrat talking point about these 90% tax rates is belied by a little inconvenient thing called the truth. The truth is that there were so many ways around these taxes that virtually nobody paid them. And the second thing is, if you want to talk about taxes, talk about what percentage of the GDP of the country is actually taken in taxes. And the fact of the matter is that there was not much difference in the GDP being taken in taxes when you had it at 90% for the highest income earners to when you had it at much lower levels. And if you have a look around the world, no matter what the tax system is, you're roughly a few percentage points of 30%. That's roughly where it is. I think the OECD average is 33%, is how much the GDP is taken in taxes. So target that, come up with a tax system that actually works, rather than just trying to bullshit the poor and the middle class and people who don't understand economics and say, look, we're going to tax the rich by increasing their income tax rates, knowing that they're not earning any income in the first place.
That's the reason why we have to also have the capital gains tax and tax the estate tax and the unrealized capital gains tax. You have to have
unrealized capital
a uniform system of taxation that existed under a great Republican called Eisenhower, and get rid of the Republican economics, which destroyed this country.
Are you going to give it back, Nick? If tax rates,
we're not giving it back. We're just going to pay down the national debt.
If asset prices fall,
and Nick, I bet you got two other
I'm not giving anybody anything. I'm just paying down the national debt
on the money that you've taxed them on. You're going to tax them on money that doesn't exist yet.
Dude, you're thinking we're just going to give it back. No, we're going to pay down the national debt.
You're going to confiscate money that they haven't actually earned yet.
Elon Musk. Elon Musk has billions of dollars, enough economic power. You can just go buy a whole huge company, Twitter, all by himself. Well, why does he have such amount of money? He didn't pay any income taxes. Didn't pay
hold on a second.
Because of expenses. You're allowed to do that, Nick.
Why aren't you having
then he finally paid the
why aren't you having a crack at Bezos or any of the tech?
I'm just slapping Elon Musk.
No, but hold on a second. I've actually got a couple of quick questions. I know we're getting ready to wind down and everything. But the question about Elon Musk is actually, I was talking to a friend of mine on their social media spaces, speaking of social media and everything, and they were actually made it at a point which I did not realize. And y'all are the ones that are more into economics than I am and everything. But apparently Elon Musk has not really bought the whole organization and everything, because what they told me is it is actually a Tinder deal and all of that. And I was thinking Tinder, that's that social app, but it's not really. It has to do with more of a financial type deal. And apparently he still has to get more of the percentage in order to actually fully take over, is what my friend Polka told me over there in Florida and everything. And she's of Jamaican descent or something like that. But that's neither here nor there. But with that being said,
he's got to throw it in. He can't stop. He can't help it.
What difference does it make?
It does to Mark.
Kill.
But Elon Musk.
I was just trying to remember in case people wanted to look her up.
I was talking to my lawyer, who's actually a white guy from Croatia.
No, but I just in case people wanted to look her up, because she's actually well known in the social media standpoint. That's the only reason I mentioned it, because that's a way that you can find her. She's also known for
as long as he's not a Russian
points as well. So she's also known for giving some saucy points, but that's a whole other story. But that being said, does he really have full control? That was my question, because that's what she brought up, was it's a Tinder deal and he still has to get the rest of the people on the board to even get the deal completed and everything, is what she told me.
But let me ask you a more important question than that, right? Because Nick over here wants to tax him out of existence.
Absolutely.
How do you feel about the first time that an African American has reached the number one spot, right? The Democrats want to start taxing him.
Which number one spot are we talking about?
I don't understand the question, Counselor.
Elon Musk is from South Africa. So he's technically
African American. He is
so the first time that we see an African American become the world's richest man, and the Democrats have turned on him and want to tax him out of existence. How do you feel about that, Mark?
Like I said, Elon does have African American descent, because you are right, he's originally from South Africa and all of that. But that being said, I'm actually been a fan of Elon Musk. I'm still trying to figure out how Elon Musk has gone from being the darling of the left to the darling of the right to the darling of nobody. Because, like I said, he seems like a nice gentleman. To me, I've never met the gentleman, but he seems like it depends on which way the winds blow as to whether folks like or dislike him.
He's an example of foreign influence in the United States. We need to eradicate people.
He's a U.S. citizen.
I mean, I don't know how he got in here.
Immigration. Yeah, there we go.
You know, why would we let a guy like him in? He came in here. He's a robber baron. He's a robber baron for the 21st century. Think about it. He grabs all the U.S. government contracts for SpaceX. He tells Biden, put in all these little electric chargers for my Tesla company.
You know what would be a solution to that, Nick? You know what would be a really, really good solution to that?
The American
if the Republicans were there and you had less government. Less government means less theft, which is what taxation is, and less redistribution to these, big businesses. So that would be the solution. You might have to change
the only way to get back with a guy like Elon Musk is you got to tax him into oblivion. And then once you tax him oblivion, then he can't do these power plays. I'm going to.
It's time for us to wrap up everything. It is that time, but just really quickly, and I'm going to make this very quick and everything. One, as I did see a comment, which is very interesting, it actually come back to one of the things going on in chat about a certain book and everything, where people were speculating that we might be heading toward a 3-state version of the United States, which would be the East Coast, the West Coast, and everybody else in between. And there would be like 3 separate nations and all of that. So we can talk about that tomorrow, whether that's actually a possibility of that happening. And actually, surprisingly, Shaquille, and we can talk about this tomorrow as well, there are actually efforts that are moving forward that are seeming like they're actually being successful in California, in Providence, in Asheville, for that lovely concept called reparations, meaning that African Americans get a certain check. Maybe I can get a check that I could actually catch up with you in money, which I'm a long way from right now, and all of that, Shaquille. But that's definitely out there, and it's being thrown out there in a variety of spaces, including, like I said, Providence, California, and some others that range in styles from being very liberal to a little bit less liberal. So we're going to find out more about that on maybe next week or tomorrow or sometime along those lines. But love to hear folks' thoughts about that. But right now, we're going to see all those people running around like hopefully they're going to start doing as now that Fauci has said the pandemic is over, at least in the United States.